Okay, so what if we could solve humanity's biggest problems? Not one by one, but all at once. It sounds crazy, right? But that's the audacious idea we're digging into today, a blueprint for how a new kind of industrial-scale intelligence could create a future of, well, staggering abundance.
But let's be super clear here. This isn't a crystal ball. It's not a prediction of what will happen. You should really think of it as a call to arms. It's an argument for what could happen, a vision of a future we can actually choose to build, starting right now.
So strap it. Because before we get into the nuts and bolts of how this works, we're going to take a quick trip into that future. Just for a moment, forget the details. I want you to feel the sheer velocity of this change.
First stop, 2026. The exponential curve we've been talking about for years, it just snapped vertical. Intelligence is now a utility, just like electricity. You plug into it. Companies are judged by something called return on cognitive spend, which is really just a fancy way of asking how much value are you generating for every watt of AI you use. We're leaving behind a world of educated guesses and entering a world of mathematical precision.
Now, let's jump ahead to 2030. Things get even wilder. The line between software and, actual physical stuff is dissolving. Imagine designing a brand new kind of solar panel on your computer and a factory just compiles it into existence. Or even better, imagine a world where no one dies waiting for an organ transplant because a new heart can be printed on demand perfectly matched to their body. And finally, we land in 2035. The chaotic, anxious transition period is over. This is the era of the quiet hum. The basics of life, energy, food, healthcare are now as reliable as tap water. Global poverty isn't just reduced, it's a solved problem. The biggest challenge humanity has left is, what do we want to create next?
So, how on earth do we get from here to there? I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, but the blueprint argues this isn't magic. It's a pattern as old as civilization itself. And it all starts with waging a war on a single critical bottleneck. And this table just lays it out so perfectly. Look at this pattern. The scientific revolution was a war on ignorance, and its weapon was the scientific method. The Industrial Revolution was a war on the limits of human and animal muscle, and its weapon was the engine. Then, the Digital Revolution was a war on distance, and its weapon was the bit. So what about today? Well, today we're fighting a war on the ultimate bottleneck, expert attention, and our weapon, the token. You can think of it as a single unit of artificial thought, a little building block of machine intelligence that we can now produce in almost infinite quantities. So here's the crucial point. In each of these revolutions, what we value as society completely changes. Prestige shifts away from the hero, that lone genius, that brilliant artisan, to the harness builder. It's the difference between a brilliant chef who can cook one perfect meal and the person who invents the microwave, which lets millions of people cook for themselves. One is a hero, the other builds a system for everyone.
Okay, so we've got the historical context down. Now let's roll up our sleeves and look at the engine room of this whole blueprint. How does a problem, a whole field like medicine or energy, actually get solved in this new world?
The key idea here is what's called a solved domain. Think of it like this. Inventing the world's best recipe for a chocolate cake, that's really hard. That takes genius. But once you have that recipe, baking 1 million of those cakes is just a logistics problem. You just need enough ovens and ingredients, right? That's a solved domain. It's that moment when getting a result is no longer about a stroke of brilliance, it's about applying enough compute.
Now, what's so fascinating is how this shows there's a predictable journey, a ladder, that every industry climbs to get there. It always starts in what's called the muddle. It's chaotic, messy, all gut feel. But then it progresses step by step until it becomes a predictable, reliable utility, something as dependable as just flipping a light switch.
Okay, so we have this almost godlike power to solve entire domains. That, believe it or not, might be the easy part. The hard part, the question that is going to define this century, is this. What do we do with it? Where do we point this thing?
The blueprint argues very forcefully that we have to aim for the stars. We have to aim this engine at moonshots, these huge, audacious missions that tackle the grand challenges, the things that lift up all of humanity, not just things that help us fight over the scraps of a fixed pie.
And we are talking about truly world-changing goals, ending the organ transplant list forever, unlocking limitless clean energy for everyone, giving every single child on Earth a personal AI tutor who's as good as the best teacher alive today, eradicating hunger by creating food from scratch. These are the kinds of stakes we're playing for.
But of course, there's a villain in this story. There's a powerful, almost invisible force that stands in the way of this future. The blueprint calls it the muddle. It's that swamp of bureaucracy, of outdated thinking, of vested interests that absolutely thrive on inefficiency and will fight change at every single turn.
And this brings us to the really critical part. This isn't just some fun theoretical exercise. The blueprint argues that we are at a tipping point right now, a once-in-a-generation window of opportunity that is closing and closing fast.
18 months. That's the timeline we're talking about. It's called the regulatory foundry window. Think of it like pouring concrete for the foundation of a skyscraper. Right now, the rules, the standards for our AI-powered future, they're still liquid. We can shape them. But very, very soon, they're going to set. They'll harden into the permanent tracks our society will run on for the next 100 years. This is the choice that is right in front of us, right now. Do we let this incredible power get stuck on the muddled path, squandered on trivialities where only a few people benefit, or do we consciously, deliberately, harness it to build an abundance machine that works for the public good?
So in the end, this blueprint leaves us with a pretty profound and urgent challenge. The weapon is built. The power is here. The target, humanity's grandest challenges, is clear. The question is no longer if we can build this future, but if we'll choose to. So, what will you build?